I'll now recognize myself, and I'll be brief in saying, if everyone on the dais had the accusations of their opponents, or even, quite frankly, sometimes the legal battles, all of us would have a bad day here. That is part of politics. But we're not here to discuss politics today. We're here to discuss the spending of hundreds of millions of dollars and a question of whether or not it was best spent on behalf of the American people.
That's right.
You said earlier that, that in fact, there were 500 people unaccounted for who received payment in money at the taxpayer's expense. Is that correct?
They did while they were employed, and then they left the agency, and we can't track them down.
Okay, and without speculating per se, but just factually, can you verify that those people, since there's no fingerprints, no pictures, can you verify that these people existed and those were true identities?
True identities, I don't know. We can't.
Can you verify that they came to work every day and performed duties?
I don't have that information.
So it is certainly possible that this independent third-party agency that you gave money, that previously were giving money to, in fact, had ghost employees or employees that the money ended up being conduited to other people. Is that possible?
It's possible.
And so on behalf of this committee and the American people, an audit is appropriate, isn't it?
I definitely believe it is, and we're in the process of doing an audit right now.
Okay, and if you fail to get the cooperation in the audit, please come back to the committee, because I think you'll see that we're willing to take further steps to support that need for an audit.
We have been stonewalled in the audit. The grantees, Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia, Middle East Broadcasting, and I mentioned OTF, have not wanted to give us any information. Stonewalled, prevented it. We started this weeks ago, and as I said, just finally, last night, on the eve of this hearing, they finally said, okay, you can come in and start looking at our books.
We get similar promises on our subpoenas in some of the committees here. Let me ask a differing question. This money to a third-party agency over which you have arguably little control based on the history, do you give money to Al Jazeera?
No.
Do you give money to Pravda, which is Russian for the word truth?
No.
Okay, why don't you?
Obviously, because those are propaganda machines of, in many cases, our enemy.
Because they're adverse to the interest of the United States of America. So, by definition, whatever becomes the new, hopefully consolidated and concise and effective organization, in fact, should do one thing, which is promote the legitimate interest of the United States, including the truth as we see it.
Absolutely. That's what we should be doing. That's what we have been doing, and we haven't been doing it well. And I'm going to work really hard to make sure that whatever we salvage from this, it's telling America's story. We have an incredible story to tell. And especially right now, as we're working for peace around the globe with a president like Donald Trump.
And speaking of peace around the globe, you're familiar with the controversy that Chairman Mast had with the agencies when he was subcommittee chairman. And all he really wanted was them to explain why they wouldn't say Hamas terrorist after the October 7th attack, and instead used words more, quote, moderate to the base. Can you assure us that in the future, that if the President of the United States, at that time Joe Biden, the Secretary of State, et cetera, have an aligned policy and statement which is supported by the Congress, that in fact the messaging would be the messaging of the American people through its representatives and not some independent third idea of what you should say to be moderate?
Well, Congressman, I wish I could assure you of that, but unfortunately with this editorial firewall, it's impossible for us to have any say over the content, which is terrible.
In closing, because this committee is going through a structural reform of all of the State Department and its agencies, which will include yours, is it fair to say that going forward, we should in fact have a single point of contact, responsible and responsive, accountable and auditable, and that in fact it should be one in which there is, at least to the oversight of Congress and the administration, verifiable that these people are employed and working to the interest for which they have been hired?
I'm afraid we're never going to find those 500 people. They've escaped.
No,
into-
I'm talking about going forward. Can we reauthorize under the State Department reauthorization an organization that you can believe in, whether it's within the State Department or not? Can we do so? And do you see that as the goal for which President Donald Trump gave you the responsibility to do and you're working on?
Yes, and I believe it needs to be rolled into the State Department because President Trump has asked that we delete this agency. And so whatever we can salvage that's worthwhile should be brought under the Department of State, under the public diplomacy arm of the Department of State.
I look forward to, and this committee looks forward to working with you through the reauthorization process to find a win-win that some of the members on both sides have talked about
great.
today. With that, it's my pleasure to recognize my colleague, the gentleman from California, Mr. Costa.